Good morning everyone. So today I'm going to present about inside and outside circle as one of the TEFL methods. So let's start. Before we deliberate more about inside and outside circle, it is better to know cooperative learning as well, since these techniques also become one of the cooperative learning techniques. So, to begin with, in the mid of 1960s, this cooperative learning was unfamiliar with the educators. So, elementary, secondary, and university teaching was totally used competitive and individualistic learning. Meanwhile, this cooperative learning also emphasized the idea of collaborating with other students in order to accomplish a shared goals. So, for the second aspects is that why it's benefits for students. There are three aspects that I state here. So for the first one, students could reflect their new knowledge in the form of discussing with classmates. Since cooperative learning needs a good apprehension of others in order to gain new knowledge and absorb some certain materials. The second one is that students are able to gain higher self-esteem and have more perceived social support, since when we are using these techniques they are able to learn how to respect and how to persuade others' opinion or suggestions. So the next step is that there are 5 elements of cooperative learning. So it also includes positive independence, individual and group accountability, face-to-face interaction, group processing, and the last one is interpersonal skills. Dr. Spencer Gargan was the pioneer in cooperative learning. Here, he was proposing his model about cooperative learning in 1985 in his book, which entitled as Cooperative Learning Structures. Here, he also advocated 2 basic principles which also have a big impact in these techniques. He also wanted to have a learning method which was a mixture between competitive and individualistic. So it is well understood that in this technique, students are able to develop their communication skills and their responsibility in accepting or admitting other suggestions, while individually learn or gaining some materials at one time. At this slide, we're going to talk more about inside and outside circle techniques. Here, as I stated before, is one of the cooperative learning tool and also falls under the supportive phase, which become a way to help students interact with one another individually to share their ideas and answers to given questions. So in these techniques, they are involved in discussing and expressing their opinions about whatever materials that they have, and then they just free to have opinion towards those materials. So why is it effective for students? These techniques could be used in the various level of educational institutions. So it could be started in the kindergarten level or starting to the kindergarten level to the higher one in universities institution. The second one is that it is also effectively used for enhancing student speaking and listening skills. As I stated before, they are able to express their opinions or asking questions to the related topics, so there are no hesitations in expressing themselves, so it's better for them. This technique also improves students' pronunciation and acquire new vocabularies. So while they intend to speak more in the classroom, they also have the opportunities to expand their understanding in vocabularies. So it is good to discuss with other classmates while enhancing their abilities in acquiring new vocabularies as well. So here are the benefits of inside and outside circle technique. Students are allowed to gain different ideas and perspectives in the material given. It is also encouraged students to build community around them, so they could enhance their social skills and how they interact with other classmates. And it is also related with the third point of this benefits is that they could also able to discuss with other classmates. So for the last aspect is that when do we need to implement this method? These inside and outside circle techniques is basically best to use before introducing new material. So it could be a warming up exercises. And the second one is when students need to share information or new knowledge with multiple groups in one time. So for example, when we're about to discuss about the effectiveness of writing in some materials, we could also ask students to discuss with classmates in these techniques as well. Next, we're going to talk more about how this technique works in the classroom. So, the first thing that we need to do is divide our students into groups appropriately based on the amounts of our students in the classroom. So, the next step is that we have to form a circle and turn around to face outward. So there are two parts of students to make a different amounts of circle. So the other member of groups creates an outside circle by facing a peer from the inner circle. And then the teacher provides certain topic. As I stated in the previous slides, it can be like the effectiveness of writing skill, or something like what do you think about Thanksgiving Day, or something like that. And then let the students do the discussion for a while. So after students in the outer circle have finished in discussing something or some topics, they need to move to the other peers from his or her right side, so they will have new peers to discuss with. So repeat the process until the whole topic finish. So it depends on us whether we have to continue or stop the discussion. But the essential part of this technique is that we could encourage our students to deliberate more in some topics, or they could have discussed more in some interesting topic with other classmates, and they could also learn how to respect their mates' suggestions, or learn how the appropriate time when to talk or when to listen, so they have the exact amount of discussing. In the next slide, we're going to explain more about how to conduct inside-outside classroom. Here I have 4 tips that we could know to learn more about these techniques. So to begin with, in the first tip, before our discussion in the classroom, make sure that the students know what exact questions that they need to explain more or discuss further. So we have to encourage them by giving questions such as, what do you think of something like Thanksgiving Day, or present tense, or how is present continuous different from simple present tense, something like that. In the second tip, we have to remind students in the inner circle of discussion in these strategies. So they need to know their responsibility in using the conversation. So they need to know the responsibility of how the conversation and this discussion going. So like for example, we need to give their information such as, I appreciated your comment, or closing or relaunching some questions to their peers. And maybe one of them could ask like, who would like to ask, or what do you think of something. So it is essential to keep the discussion going, so there's no need to hesitate or something like have to be a awkward situation if they are understand enough in their responsibility in going to a effective discussion. So in the third tip, we have to remind the outer circle of the students for the responsibility. So here, in the previous tip, we already remind the inner circle their responsibility in keeping the discussion going. So in the outer circle, we need to remind them that they need to take notes on the main topics or content or themes of the discussion, and maybe provide some feedback on the dynamics of the discussion to the inner circle participants. So the balance of among discussion is appropriate for both of these parties. So for the last tip is that we have to encourage all students to write a reflection on what they have learned about the content and what they have noticed about the dynamics of the discussion. It is better to know what they think about the discussion, whether they like it or not, or whether they like some topics rather than previous topic or not. So each student should set speaking and listening goals for the next discussion. So for the next one, I'm going to give some brief video that related with this topic and related with this inside and outside techniques. Hope you will enjoy it.
Inside-outside circle is something that I use to get the students talking again. Since I'm a French teacher, they have to talk a lot. So the way it works is that I give them a questionnaire. So this is a variation of inside-outside circle. I have them turn the desk to face each other, and they have to just move from one desk to the other. And it's kind of like speed dating, where they're asking each other questions and they have to take notes of what the other students said. And then after they've gone through the 4, 5, or 6 questions that I have, they just stand up and switch desks so that they have someone else in front of them for the next round. I like inside-outside circle because they can repeat the same thing 4 or 5 times, but because they are with different students each time, it's not as boring. And so it's something that I usually do maybe a few days after I introduce the vocabulary, so that it's not too fresh yet, because otherwise it wouldn't work as well.
Alright, thank you Ivana, my partner, who has explained about inside and outside circle learning technique. And now, I'll be explaining about Paraphrase Passport. Paraphrase Passport is part of the cooperative learning. Cooperative learning itself is a successful teaching strategy in which small teams, each with students of varying abilities, use a variety of learning activities to improve their understanding of a subject. Paraphrase Passport is a discussion protocol that can be used in small group, pair, or whole class discussions. This protocol helps to build listening skills in small group or whole class discussions because they are forced to actively listen as well as process the information that was given by the previous person. And now, let's discuss how Paraphrase Passport is done. The teacher poses a question for a small group consideration, or the teacher could select a piece of text and divides the text into sections or paragraphs. Next, the students are placed into partnerships, or you can put the students into groups of pair, or the teacher could have the students divided into 2 teams for the whole class discussion. One designated team member makes an initial statement or response. They are the first to start a question, a statement, or a story to be paraphrased. Then, after listening, the other team paraphrases the statement that was stated by the previous team, and then the previous initial team could answer whether what they paraphrased is correct or not. The process is repeated until everyone gets their turn, and as the teacher acts as the facilitator. By having Paraphrase Passport as a learning technique, teachers could address skills for the students. Some of them are: provide a structure for reading, processing, and restating written text. For those students who are given a reading text, they could train their reading skills by reading all of the text and have a clear purpose for the reading. It also gives students oral fluency because students will always read several passages of the text aloud. Then, students can also train how to synthesize because students will always train each other how to make inferences. It also, of course, train them how to paraphrase. And also, they train their listening skills so much because they will always try to listen and grasp what the other students are talking about. There are also classroom tips on when, why, and where you should use the Paraphrase Passport. So first of all, this Paraphrase Passport is good when it's used with science topic questions or with debates questions. Having students writing the summary of the previous person's statement may help keep them accountable when in small groups or pairs. So even though it's Paraphrase Passport when you need to orally speak up, it is also suggested that if students write the summary of the previous person's statement, it also helps them to better understand and paraphrase the whole class discussion. However, this learning technique also has a downturn. This protocol may discourage students who have lower listening comprehension skills, and therefore, as teachers, we need to be ready whenever a student feels discouraged. So thank you so much for listening to our presentation. We thank you from Stacy and Ivana. We hope that you are all doing well. For today's topic, Inside Outside Circle and Paraphrase Passport, shall you have any further question, please privately message us and we will try our best to answer your question clearly. Thank you.